Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of Heaping Spoonful. Our goal with this podcast is to share the stories of the South's top chefs and restaurateurs with our listeners. I'm Kelly Bass, and I'm proud to be your host. Covering the restaurant scene is something I've done more on than off for, almost 40 years now. Most of that was doing restaurant reviews and profiles and other features for Little Rock newspapers and magazines long before the internet was a thing. Back before anyone who got on Yelp or TripAdvisor could tell you how they see things and how they taste things. Now, thanks to the folks at Benny Keith Foods, I'm a podcaster, and I like talking about food more than writing about it. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Ben Brainard, owner and operator of Big Bad Breakfast, one of the most anticipated and well-received restaurants to open in Little Rock, Arkansas in a long time. So, welcome, Ben.
Honored to be here. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Sure. So, one of the most enduring stories of the Central Arkansas culinary scene, and I'm sure other places too, are the legacies that so many of our top restaurants and restaurant groups have left in the way the family tree has grown in height and width. And since I've been watching this thing for more than 40 years, I've seen lots. Early in my career, I got the chance to go to the restaurant Jock and Suzanne, atop an office building, bank building in downtown Little Rock that was doing cutting-edge fine cuisine and spawned many of the best restaurants our area has ever known, and they have gone off in lots of different directions. And while a smaller tree, the legacy of Lee Richardson at Ashley's at the Capitol Hotel is rich too, from Matt McClure, again a James Beard nominee, to Matt Bell and many others who I'm leaving out that I shouldn't. And you are one of the, maybe, I don't know if the first, but you're a major branch off of the Yellow Rocket Concepts family tree, which for those who don't know is a restaurant group here that has several concepts that they execute very well. And Ben was right in the middle of lots of that. So how did you first connect with the folks, Scott McGee and the others at Yellow Rocket?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think that you actually bring up some really good points. I met Scott in 2000 at Boulevard Bread Company. I was dating a young lady, and I was in real estate at the time. I was pretty miserable with it altogether. It was not just I was quite good at it, but was not happy and not fulfilled. And I went to my girlfriend at the time and said that I'm strongly considering taking about a 300% pay cut and going to ask Scott McGee for a job. And she kind of looked at me strangely and said, Scott. And I said, well, he just opened Boulevard Bread Company. And in my opinion, that was the moment that everything changed in this city.
100%.
That was the linchpin for progress, for culinary progress, for just a different vantage point. We had the Jacques and Suzanne. We had those kind of highbrow Ashleys. We had Alouettes, right. Really highbrow white tablecloth restaurants, and elevated service levels, but at no point, in my opinion, did anybody do fine dining in a casual atmosphere.
Right.
And Scott did that out of the gate with Boulevard, and I recognized something that I just immediately was respected. I was drawn to it, and I went and I asked him. I said, I want to work here, and I'll do whatever. And I did. I started as a prep cook.
Yeah.
And that relationship grew, and then all of a sudden I was cooking directly next to Scott every day, which and I will ask. I've been asked many times, who is your greatest inspiration? Scott McGee is my absolute greatest inspiration. He taught me a lion's share of everything that I know about this business, about creating culture, about how to treat the people with whom you work and the guests that come through the door. So having, and then from that, I grew up with John Beachward. He and I go back to junior high school, and he was at Boulevard when I started, and so that was kind of the petri dish that kind of grew. But what's funny and apt to your question is that Scott is is a part of the tree from Chez Panisse in Berkeley, which if you look at where the chefs from that restaurant, that they are international, and every single thing that they do is at
that's
the very
Alice Waters, right?
Correct, Alice Waters. I mean, Frank Stitt in Birmingham. He's multiple winner. He's got a Michelin star.
Wow.
I think, and what Lee Richardson put together at Ashley's, in my opinion, is the greatest talent I've ever seen in any restaurant anywhere. And I've worked at a lot of really incredible restaurants. John Currence and I were talking about this with Lee last week.
Wow.
About Cassidy Dabney, who she should have won the beard, in my opinion, in this last go round. She's the most exceptional chef I've ever worked with in my life. Period. And Brian Deloney, who's run a fantastic restaurant here forever. Travis McConnell, his charcuteries is just out of this world. Matt McClure, he's been nominated 4 times.
Sure.
Matt Bell. I mean, Southland Maine was where my wife and I ate all the time. So the tree is a really good way to put it. Yellow Rocket, I was actually the second partner to leave. Heron Hickenbotham sold his interest to Russ McDonough about a decade ago, and I was then the second partner to leave.
But you were the first one to leave who was operationally very involved in.
That is correct.
In the kitchen and in the stuff.
and that was more driven at opportunity and actually to your earlier point about kind of an opportunity in the market that I saw.
Yeah, exactly. And for those, just to set context, I know we have listeners around the world and hopefully on other planets, but Boulevard Bread makes baguette and other breads that are the equivalent to what you get in Paris. And my sister, who lived in Paris for 30 years, confirmed that the first time she had a bite of it, as well as exceptional sandwiches and soups and then entrees and to-go stuff, and has an amazing cheese and selection and bread and meat selection. And again, like you say, we had high-end restaurants. They're not accessible to everybody. No, but a lot of people don't want to go. But I mean, you can walk in Boulevard Bread and walk out with $8 worth of stuff and say, "Man, this is world-class stuff."
It is.
But a point you made that, and I've heard it from others who've been involved with Yellow Rocket is the culture and the way that everybody treats one another and the way they treat the guests. So that is really cool. So again, it's clear you have a rewarding career. Let's talk a little bit more about the projects that you're working with Scott and with John, your childhood friend, and the concepts expand. The Zaza came, and then I guess was Big Orange the next one.
So yes, I was a employee and a manager of Zaza while we were developing Local Lime.
Local Lime came before Big Orange.
No, it was supposed to, but a opportunity for a space actually in the Chanel Promenade was built out to be a burger place, and then through a series of unfortunate events, that those operators had to walk away, and so there was a half built out burger restaurant, and we looked at that space for Local Lime, and we were like, well, this is a burger place. So John and Scott were like, let's just make a burger place, and did, and what a success! What a success that's been.
God.
I begrudge. I am a little bit irritated with myself that I was like, you know what? I'll just hold off for Local Lime. I didn't have a lot of money and there was a finite amount of resources.
Well, same commitment to excellence. I mean, using the very best beef, the very best potatoes, and one of the great things that happened to my wife Ashley and me is when the one opened in Midtown, because we live in Hillcrest. So and it's bigger.
Right.
I hadn't been up to North.
Yes, and to this day, Big Orange performs at the very.
Well, as does Local Lime, and so it's in the same center, and that was your baby.
That was my first restaurant. That was a Lion. I mean, I think that I receive way too much credit for a collection of people really came together to make that concept really unique and really special. And because I was the kind of the boots on ground person, I think I get more credit than I probably should. But that to say, it's still the one of the most proud moments of my profession.
Yeah, and I mean, just again, top shelf taco, street taco style. I mean, the best margarita I've had in town. I mean, again, it's just like commitment with quality ingredients, commitment to excellence.
But it's also thank you for saying that. And obviously, I still take a tremendous amount of pride in that product. Is the agave program that is represented at Local Lime. I'll put it up against any in the country. It's everything on that shelf is incredibly responsible. It's incredibly well thought out. It's the attention that is paid to the ingredients in the food, equal attention is paid to the bar selections as well. And I'm so proud of that.
And were you also a part of Heights Taco and Tamale?
Yes. I was one of the founding. I was a founding member and operator of that.
Which again, I will have to tell you, I used to go in some of the intros that I do when on Heaping Spoonful. I mentioned that when I was 18 months old, and I'm 63 now. I fell over backwards in my high chair at Brownings, where we lived a few blocks from Brownings when I was.
I grew up on Hawthorne.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's near and dear as a location, and it took some things to happen over the years for us to realize that maybe that wasn't as good a Tex-Mex as it seemed like when we were 7 years old. But that's the space where Heights Taco and Tamale is, and it's exceptionally good. I just find it. Most of the times I want to go, so does everybody else in Little Rock, and it's kind of crowded.
Yellow Rocket enjoys the having to explain off the problem that you most want, which is too loud, too busy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have a problem in our business, that's the one you want.
Yeah, too many people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot worse things.
Right. And so what so again, you said you spotted a niche that needed to be filled in the marketplace, and we're going to talk about what that was. And you came together with a guy who had developed a concept who, as you've already mentioned him once, John Currence, who's a James Beard Award winner. How did he let it be known he wanted to come to Little Rock, or did you say, "Hey, John, you need to come to Little Rock, and I want to work with you"?
So it was a really unique experience. When I left Yellow Rocket, the intention for my wife and I was to open up a small bistro. We had an opportunity to sell the wine that is interesting to me and make the food that is interesting to me, and that was before COVID had revealed itself to be quite what COVID was or became, and I realized over the course of that 6 months where I would try and buy some real estate and make that commitment, and that is that I just didn't know what COVID was going to be, and to put everything to put everything that I had created with Yellow Rocket and all of the financial aspect on the hook just seemed really dangerous in that capacity.
Sure.
And so fortuitously, I'd get a call from my old buddy John Currence, who I'd met through No Kid Hungry. We're both very involved in No Kid Hungry. And he said, "I heard you left Yellow Rocket." And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what are we going to do?" And I said, No, I'm done. And Scott McGee Yellow Rocket was always going to be his ship, and especially on the culinary side, and that was never a problem for me. I'm not an ego-driven person. That's not what motivates me. That was I take proud responsibility for some of the things, but that food was Scott's, right. and I was really interested in saying, okay, well, this is what I do. This is and I wanted my hometown to get an understanding of me.
Sure.
And I still want that. And so I very polite. I mean, to have a James Beard caliber chef ask you if you want to do something is obviously professionally vindicating. And I was just on cloud nine.
Flattered, sure.
But it was not my plan. That was not why I was doing what I was doing. Well, after a few months of going, okay, COVID's still here. It's still getting worse. And I said to my wife, I was like, there's no breakfast in this town. There's none. And all due respect to At the Corner, who I love them and I love their product. It's a small space.
Yep.
I love the route, but again, that's kind of a very finite area that they're addressing. And so I was like, what if we were to put breakfast in West Little Rock?
Yeah.
What if?
Where only IHOP and maybe Waffle House rule.
I mean, by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And we could not see a flaw in the opportunity. I wanted to shift my time to mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 45 now, and I was home with my kids for a year.
Sure.
I mean, I was not going to give that up. I was home with my wife for a year. This was a life that I was unfamiliar with, and I'm not ready to let go of. So morning work lends itself to that opportunity to get home for dinner, to get home for homework, to get home.
Sure.
And so that I was mesmerized by it. Honestly, and so I called him back a couple months later, and I said, "I'll take Big Bag Breakfast if it's an option." He said, "Let's go." Man. And so it hasn't been without its challenges.
Sure.
Because when me relearning a new schedule. Well, there's also a bunch of employees who are not used to that schedule either.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So you ask any of my former employees, the one way to get under my skin is punctuality. If you're not punctual, it's a real problem for me. I've learned to be a lot more graceful about that.
Right.
Because
you open at 7.
We open at 7, but the cooks
got to get there before.
Cooks are there at 5. Everything on that menu is made that day. And the most challenging aspect of this, and I've said this ad nauseum with John, somehow he has put together something. It is fine dining, a la minute. It is short order fine dining,
right?
And that is incredibly complex. To execute it in breakfast timing, people aren't trying to wait 30 minutes for Monday through Friday. That's not your market,
right?
They're graceful on Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
During the week, we have
got to get to work.
We have an 8-minute timer, and if that timer goes off, I am screaming.
You mean by the time you get the order till the order's coming out?
Yep. From the moment we receive the order, you have 8 minutes, and
that includes cooking an omelet, or
actually, omelet is the perfect example. I mean, a traditional French omelet, which I would put ours up against anybody in the world. And you go to Nice, I'll take ours.
Yeah.
We execute that in 8 minutes. We don't always succeed, but that is the goal. That is absolutely the goal.
Yeah. And I would bet some of those folks who were there at 5 a.m, the last time they saw 5 a.m. is when they were leaving Midtown. On the other end of the awake. But they're all growing up too, and they all want to have a life. And that's the thing COVID taught. Some of my favorite musicians who didn't tour for a year and a half or two said, "I like being home. I think I'm not going to tour anymore. I'm just going to make music that's recorded and put out. I'm not going to get on the road anymore." But yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I encourage everybody anywhere to look at the Big Bad Breakfast menu. It's creative. It is diverse. It is, first off, whoever wrote the copy is brilliant because it's funny and irreverent, but informational. And again, where are you located? The corner of Bowman and Markham in West Little Rock is not as west as it felt 10 years ago because west keeps getting defined further out.
That's correct.
It's not hard to get to. It's not hard to get to.
Unless you ask my mom, who lives in the Heights. It may as well be the Sahara she's crossing.
Well, that's right. They don't like crossing Mississippi. But,
that's right.
So that was, again, that you picked that location because you thought this is where we can really capitalize.
Absolutely right.
A lot of traffic. So when were the conversation with John about, hey, is Big Bad Breakfast available to potentially, and he says yes, when was that conversation happening?
That would have been July of 21.
Okay.
Make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah, July of 21.
So it took, and when you got it open, when?
We opened 1 year, one calendar date from that conversation.
So it took a year.
Yeah, it took 1 year.
And is that how long you expected it to take, or did a few?
No, there were a lot of
hiccups and stuff.
It was when I was pretty meticulous in the design, probably more so than I needed to be.
Yeah.
I wish that I had gotten out of the way of the brand a little bit and just be. They really that to say, the end game has a really good feel of me in there.
Right.
And I'm really proud of that. That was something that was really important.
It's not
to me.
a franchise.
Well, yeah, it's we are a chain. We know what we are, but I very intentionally put a giant mural of Arkansas and Arkansas musicians on the wall. That place,
it feels like Arkansas.
that space is Arkansas, and the operators are. We are from Arkansas, and I am excited that once I kind of get my brain wrapped around it all, I'm going to have some chalkboard specials that'll be more representative of me and more representative of this town. Bards. I grew up going to Bards.
Yep, I did.
And so that feel is exactly what I wanted to capture, and so That will come with time. The most important thing now is to establish that we can execute the menu as it's represented, and then we can move forward from there.
Sure. And I know, so John give you just about as much help as you needed, or does he call?
John is incredibly accessible to me.
Yeah.
He's been an absolute joy to work with. But have we always seen eye to eye? No, but we're both stubborn, and I will say that I, having worked with Scott, and while we were equal partners in the ventures that we did, I always know my place with him. He was he's my mentor, and so I've been able to apply that to John as well in terms of this is his baby. He's allowing me to execute it, and I take great pride in that. I'm not to disappoint him is that's not going to happen.
Right.
So.
Well, that's totally cool. We're going to dig into your menu a little bit of an item by item here in a few minutes, but first, give our listeners a general explanation of how Big Bad Breakfast differs from what they might consider a breakfast place.
Well, it starts with ingredients. Our ingredients. I have a great partnership with Benny Keith. Benny Keith has really been over backwards to accommodate me and what I need and what John needs in terms of really the highest caliber ingredients possible. If you start there, everything else kind of works itself out.
Sure.
It's also. There's no bags being opened and put into a microwave. Everything, like I mentioned earlier, is created that day. All of our jellies we make.
Wow.
And we don't make those every day. We make those every other day.
Yeah.
When we get asked for grape jelly, there's a reason we don't have it, because making grape jelly is a real pain in the bottom.
Right.
But the things that we're able to really focus on. We do. Our omelets are traditional 3-egg French omelet. We've expedited the system a little bit, and honestly, in a very positive way, if you ask me.
But I saw biscuits are made through the day
through the day.
Right. You don't make a bunch in the morning, and then at 2:30 you're like, wow, this thing seems like it's been sitting around.
Absolutely not. No. Our bacon. So we own our own pig farm.
Wow.
And right outside of Birmingham, we grow our own pigs. We partnered with Tabasco, and so all of the spent pepper mash from when they pour off the vinegar, the Tabasco sauce, all that spent mash, we take that and we mix that equal parts mash and salt, and that's what we cure our pork belly in for our bacon. Every aspect of what we're serving is incredibly scrutinized. Our pancake batter is made by hand every day.
Right.
The flour that we use is important. There's a lot of attention to detail, and then you have to expedite that. That's
because, as you say, this is a breakfast. Primarily a breakfast place, and on weekdays, people don't have a lot of time to wait around for you to make their breakfast.
No, and we don't, and not only that, but we don't have the time to explain that to them. So they have to be able to taste it. They have to come in and they have to taste the food. And they're like, something is different here.
Right.
That's what I want.
Yeah. And so, again, I encourage everybody to look at the menu because it's varied. And so you're open from 7 to 2:30.
Correct.
So people are there at lunchtime and breakfast time. But if I wanted a shrimp po' boy at 7:05 in the morning, can I get it?
Done.
And if I want bacon and eggs at 2:15, I can get it.
Done.
So yeah, which I think is totally cool because we all sometimes like breakfast for lunch at least, if not dinner.
There's also a lot of people who don't like breakfast.
Yeah.
I've learned that as well. Is like people come in and order a burger. In fairness, our burger's very delicious.
We're going to talk about
But
it. Yeah.
But some people just aren't. They're not breakfast people. I love breakfast.
Yeah, I'm too. All right. Well, thanks, Ben. We're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful and be back in just a minute with Ben Brainard of Big Bad Breakfast in Little Rock, Arkansas. So hang on, folks.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. Now we're going to get into back into our conversation with Ben Brainard of Big Bad Breakfast. Let's again dig into the menu. In reading articles about you and Big Bad Breakfast before it opened, I remember you saying that you've never had better shrimp and grits than what you had that was made by what John Currence conceptualized and what you serve at Big Bad Breakfast. Shrimp and grits has become a little bit ubiquitous. It was one of those things, kind of like chicken and waffles. That
Sean Brock ruined it for everybody.
Everyone's like all of a sudden, woo woo. So tell us about your. So obviously you use high quality grits to make your grits. Tell us about how it's done, because sometimes grits is more like it's solid. Sometimes it's kind of more mushy. What are your shrimp and grits?
So we feature Grit Girl out of Mississippi, who John partnered with a long time ago. I experimented with a few local places and still haven't quite found the consistency that I'm happy with. I will continue. John really wants me to find Arkansas sourced ingredients and wherever possible, and I will, but not until I find something as good as what we're serving currently.
Sure, yeah.
And so right now we're using Grit Girl, and it's really the mill of it that we're looking for. It's very coarsely ground. And then into which we mix 3 types of cheese. So they are cheese grits,
and I like them.
And I will say that's gotten me in a little bit of trouble because some people want sugar. They want sweet grits, and so we are having a conversation about being a little bit more descriptive of how we do it, because there's Parmesan, cheddar, and Gruyere in our grits. There's some butter.
Yeah,
and whole milk and a bunch of black pepper, which reminds me of my grandmother. So on the shrimp side, we use Gulf shrimp, and they're sautéed. We make a really garlic heavy. We call it V8 sauce. Because it kind of tastes like V8 juice, but it's San Marzano tomatoes and a bunch of garlic and a bunch of black pepper and a few other little things, and so we deglaze, saute the shrimp in clarified butter, deglaze with the V8 sauce, and then we take a ladle of our red eye gravy. I don't know if you're familiar with red eye gravy.
I've not as much. I've had more cream. I've heard of it a lot.
It's coffee based. It's coffee and pork renderings, and we finish with that. Reduce, pour it over, done. I mean, and with some fresh scallions on top. It's incredibly simple. It's incredibly fast. The grits are easily the most long portion, but we do that. We do that twice a day, right. And it's just one of the sweetness from the shrimp and the spiciness from the sauce, and then that little touch of the coffee it's exceptional, and it's pretty high in acid, which does throw some people off. Most people are like, I'm never doing this ever again, any other way. And that's how I feel about it. That dish executed to perfection is top 3 dishes on the menu for me. No question.
Super cool. And you've already bragged about your omelets, and I know they're French style 3-egg. But tell somebody how that's different than what they're doing in their house.
Well, probably what they're doing in their house is overcooking the eggs. I tell my home cook friends, the thing that separates us from maybe a home cook is use of salt.
Yeah,
and don't overcook. You
use more salt or less salt.
Oh well, you don't train under Scott McGee and not know how to use salt.
I'm with you.
But pardon me. The making an omelet at home making an omelet is all about movement. It's constant movement because if the egg sits too long on the griddle, you can't have a brown. There's no color on an egg. But also those bubbles, those imperfections, it needs to be almost a custard consistency, and that can only be generated by constant movement. That cannot sit still. And we have created. We actually finish in a salamander. So that we're not having to manually flip the egg, which helps us keep a perfect smooth.
I was going to ask about that because some people let it overcook on the bottom because I think they need that to flip it.
Incorrect. Well, I mean, maybe you do, but then all the ingredients for that omelet are cooked on a separate pan and then added and then fold, serve.
Oh, I was really intrigued by the BLT omelet because, again, it says on the menu, it's like your favorite sandwich in an omelet. I've never had an omelet with mayonnaise, but you know what? I'm willing to give it a shot. And I've heard of ham dust, but I don't, I can imagine what it is.
So ham dust is, John certainly can't take credit for that. It's, we take country ham and we very slowly render it in a low oven overnight. You come in and it's dust. Completely dried out. Then you put it in a Robocoupe and blends it up, and it becomes dust.
Right. So a little mayonnaise in the omelet's probably good.
It's the BLT omelet is the hardest sell, but I've never once had somebody say I bat 1,000 on that.
Yeah,
dish.
That is cool. And again, I know Currence's background, and he's got a lot of New Orleans in him, obviously. And if anybody wants proof there's a New Orleans theme, there's fried oysters around. You got them in a scramble, you got them on a po' boy, got them on a Caesar salad. Are people warming up to fried oysters?
People that order oysters love oysters.
Yeah. You either do or you don't.
It's one thing that we train on with servers is don't try and push oysters. Right. Oysters for me. My death meal are West Coast oysters, fried chicken, and champagne. In fairness, that probably will kill me. But what a way to go out. So if I see oysters, I'm going to order them. Don't dig your heels in the sand on trying to push oysters on somebody who thinks that they don't like them, because it's a lot of times.
And you got plenty of other things,
100%.
Yeah, right.
Don't jump on that grenade.
Have you all gone upscale or not upscale, but what do you use for bread for your po' boys?
So we use don't catch me lying.
So it's not like Leidenheimer.
No, it's not Leidenheimer. Because we use the same product for our French toast, and the Leidenheimer was falling apart too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I'm sure it's gonna be great. I'm making debris po' boys for some friends Thursday night before we go see Reckless Kelly, and I just end up with Pepperidge Farm rolls, and everybody complains.
Well, this gets me in trouble, especially with John. But I don't like Leidenheimer.
Yeah, some people don't.
It's not for me. If I'm down at Joe's eating in New Orleans, of course. Take
it how you get.
Come on, but right. I try and control that narrative here.
Yeah. I see that you've entered the chicken sandwich wars, which are burning pretty hot with no participation by me, because I'm not snobby about fast food. I just don't ever end up getting it. But I'm sure what you're making is superior to what people have come to enjoy at Chick-fil-A or Popeyes and all the factions.
I will say this with absolute confidence. It is the best chicken sandwich there is.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's really not close.
Yeah. All right. You're challenging me. One thing I have learned, again, these conversations with chefs and restaurateurs, and many who are both. You really can't go wrong having a burger. I mean, particularly if you do it right. Like you said, with the Yellow Rocket, it's like, well, we got a chance to do burgers. Let's do burgers. And let's do them really well. And most, they win best burgers something more often than not. But you've got a good burger. Tell us about it. And again, what differentiates it? What style and how's it presented? And
it's 100% Angus. It's third pound. And it is, we cook it to medium unless you specify otherwise. Our house seasoning really, really resonates beautifully with beef. We also have a steak and eggs, and that we kind of I figured out on the steak that
seasoning,
we should probably put that on a burger as well. Yeah. We were getting a lot of ask for burgers, and it true to task. Don't overcook it, and it's exceptional. And so we really encourage people to trust us on that. I mean, obviously, you ask for a well done burger, it's what you're going to get. But buy the right beef. We use Martin's rolls which are just out of this world. Add a sweet component. Then it's lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, mustard, and pickles. I mean, is
it a French? Are you a French fry place or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Our French fries are dynamite.
Yeah. Cool. Are there any other menu items? I didn't want to talk about every single one of them, or something else. Anything we're missing that you want to point out?
It's funny. So I'm not a pancake guy.
Yeah. My wife is.
But I am now.
Yeah.
Pancake. I've always been a savory breakfast guy. French toast and pancakes have never really been on my radar. So our pancakes are perfect. The only problem with our pancakes is so much. I mean, it's three big
old pancakes.
Flapjack. I mean, it is a stack of food, but they're special.
Yeah.
John uses his grandmother's recipe on that, and you can just tell.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing too. When you partner with somebody like that, sure, you have your chance to put your stamp on it and change things around the way you want to. But boy, when he comes in with something as good as his grandmother's pancakes, it's like, I ain't messing with this one.
Well, he can just flat out cook.
Yeah.
Guys like that, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's a tremendous honor to work with him.
Well, I'll tell you, before we close, I want to bring up one more menu section that caught my eye immediately. And if you're like folks who learned to read in school, you start at the left, you read left to right, top to bottom, and on the top left of your menu is cocktails. And the 5 you feature are the classics, some more breakfasty than others, but the Bloody Mary and the Mimosa. So I know you mentioned your Bloody Mary mix. That's something you guys make in-house, and I guess put all your normal stuff in it and maybe jazz it up a little bit.
A lot of horseradish.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of horseradish, a lot of black pepper. It is unashamedly spicy.
Yeah.
And we probably miss opportunities to explain that to our guests, because if we have negative feedback, it's always the spice level.
Too spicy.
I mean, for me, it can't be. I mean, but that to say, we partner with Cathead Vodka, which is out of Mississippi as well, and it is very simple and perfect. In my opinion, the Bloody Mary is perfect. The mimosa, we fresh squeeze our orange juice every morning, and I use French sparkling wine that is beautiful by itself.
Probably too good to be a mimosa, but you're doing it anyway.
It is, but then you try it with a fresh orange juice, and you're like, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I'm with you. And I don't need all that much orange juice, but
yeah, I'm a quarter. I use a quarter orange juice, and that's probably still too much.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued by the breakfast dude, which is White Russian-esque in its description, but it features your Big Bad Brew, which is a cold brew coffee. Tell us about the Big Bad Brew.
It's a great question. So yeah, we make all of our cold brew at the end of every shift so that it's ready for the beginning of the next day's shift.
Gotcha.
And it's very chicory heavy. I admittedly, I'm not a big chicory fan. When I go to Cafe Du Monde, I just pass on the coffee.
Yeah.
But the it's about 30% chicory, and then the rest is our house Royal Cup ground, and the breakfast dude takes that cold brew, mixes it with Kahlua, vodka, Bailey's. I'm missing something.
Got to be some cream or milk or something.
Yeah, and heavy and half and half. And it is absolutely dynamite. Yeah. But I warn you, it's boozy.
Yeah,
it is. I'm not gonna drive after two of them, right. and I'm a substantial human. So we do put a little asterisk next to that drink, but it is insanely delicious.
Oh, cool.
I will also shamelessly plug. We are featuring Onyx for our espresso,
Great stuff.
And it's just we're using their Mockingbird right now, and it is dynamite.
So when you serve coffee, you can get a fancy coffee, or you can get a
absolutely. We have a full espresso bar, and then our house brew is Royal Cup out of Alabama.
Yeah, that is fabulous. Well, listen, I thank you so much, Ben, for being the guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Best of luck in all you're doing at Big Bad Breakfast. It sounds like you're just continuing to make sure you're doing it right, and then you're going to go and tweak along the way as you see fit. So, and I also really appreciate all of you listening to Heaping Spoonful today. Remember that we post new episodes on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So go check out some of the ones you've missed, if you've missed some, and keep an eye and an ear out for the new ones. So goodbye, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.